So we will talk about effortless image optimization because we are lazy, and this new directive, even it's been there for a while, but it makes us really lazy. So in my company, we have full stack devs, we have backend devs, we have front-end devs, but we also have UI devs. There are not quite a lot in companies. There are people just making HTML and CSS, and not only they really enjoy doing it, but they're really expert at it. And suddenly they discover that rather than just using the src attribute for images, we had code base with this attribute, and that's not a native one. They know all native attributes, they're really good at it, but they wonder, what is this change? Why do we use a specific one? And by starting discovering this directive, they were quite confused because we still have height, white, we can use loading, so it's about native. So what does it bring for us? And so this talk, there are already two blog posts on angular.love about OptimizedImage, about performance, but for this talk we will dive in the code base itself, so you will see a lot of code, but that's a good opportunity to see what's the result, because that's, even this, if it's in the Angular code base, it's still a directive, like you could create one. So that's a good opportunity to understand that there are some quite simple ways to discover the code base. And so let's start with comments. So comments in the code base, what it is about. So this directive is about improving the image loading performance by enforcing best practices. So best practices is not just about what the Angular team feels like about being great for performance, for the user experience. It's also about the Chrome team, because both teams work together to make it possible, to make this directive using all these best practices. But if you're not quite used to directive, if you're new to Angular, so when we are thinking about directives, sometimes they're defined as templateless component, like there's Slack component, but without a template. But in fact, components are directives with a template. So every component or directive, but with another decorator and with a template also. So the goal of directives is about putting some logic in your templates in an abstract and isolated way. So let's get back to the command. So that's the directive. The idea is to ensure that the loading of what we call LCP is prioritized. LCP is one of the core Web Vitals metrics. It's about looking at your biggest image when you're loading a web page. It's important because sometimes it's quite delayed for some reasons, and you might start wanting to interact with the application, and suddenly the image appears and you have a bad experience about that. So how to change it, or to provide a good experience for users and some big performance. No, sorry. Okay, so it's about setting the fetch priority, which is a native attribute already, using lazy loading for non-priority images, and by default, and also for SSR consents using a pre-connect link tag in the document 8. And oh yeah, in addition, it's also about generating asset URLs, because you could use an image loader, about using srcset like in native way, while than 8, and to warn if while than wait has been set incorrectly, and to warn once again for another reason, because in fact there are 13 cancel warn in this directive API, and it might throw 21 times. So this directive, it's about best practices by combining your code, but it's also about warning you if there is something wrong about what you are doing. And so, for example, this is what happened in NgOptimized lifecycle hook for this directive. So we have all these assertions to make sure that everything is fine. And the last line is about setting the host attributes. So you won't set native attributes like src sets, like src itself, and like loading, like fetch priority, and this directive will take care about it once all the assertions were evaluated. And so that's the smallest definition of the code base for this directive. So like any directive in your Angular application, you have the decorator. Now it's standalone, like as we were used to now. And there is this selector. If you're not used, once again, to directive, that's a CSS selector. So it can target anything that you provide here. So for this example, it means that if you're using the NgSrc attribute on image HTML tag, it will understand that it should use the directive logic upon it. But it might not be quite easy to see if you imported the OptimizedImage directive correctly. You might have some bad experience about it, and I really encourage you. So we have. So that's the new version, and I really encourage you to give a try to WebStorm. I'm not affiliated to JetBrains, but that's really a great idea, and it's not free for non-commercial use. So if you're a student, junior, or you just want to make some code on your free time, give it a try. It has been free since 1 or 2 months, so that's really, really great. It doesn't use the Angular language service directly to help you, but there is a really great built-in plugin. And so let's get back to this quite simple definition. That's not the whole code, and in fact, there is also the host metadata being used to define a lot of styles, because by default it will add some style based on 2 situations, in fact, about using a field property and about using a placeholder property, and we will see about it later on. But as you can see, it's not just about logic itself or using some attributes, but also about using some styles. And so the first input that you will see in the code base, and it's obvious, it's the NgSrc. It's required. There is a transform to make sure that it's a safe URL, and it's defined as being processed to be applied at the end as the src property. And one of the first errors that you can make is about using the native one, src, and the NgSrc. And by doing so, your browser will try to resolve src, and it will not apply to all the logic about this directive. And if you do so, there is an assertion about that to make sure that you are not using src on the host element. So that's one of the errors. It might feel complicated, but it's way easier to read in your DevTools. You also have an error if you set the srcset on your own also, with, once again, a big error. And the second input that is used and that we want to use for LCP, largest contentful paint, is called priority. Priority use a transform, a Boolean attribute. It means that you can just define it like that. You don't need to set it at priority equal true. By just being set on the image will be enough for Angular to know that it has to set it as a priority element. And by being priority, it means that the native way to do so, and what Angular is doing under the hood, is about adding the fetch priority to hide and using loading at eager. So it's really a priority, a big priority, a high priority about fetching it and making sure that you're not loading it as lazy, but eager. And about this loading, there is another input that you might want to use, but only on specific use case. It's about, by default, all your images will be lazy. But be careful, because if you like to put one as eager, you might start considering using priority before. Because priority will use loading here, but will also add a fetch priority to hide. And we also have an error if we have too many priority attribute being used in the page. So by default, it's about 10 attributes. So if you have 11 images with priority, there are too many priorities in your page, so it's really bad, and you should consider removing some of them. One of the obvious attributes that you need is the wide and the hide. They are required if you're not using another attribute called fill. And 1000 pixel. 1000 pixel, depending on your dot page, might be quite big, and it's the oversized image tolerance. So if there is a 1000 pixel difference between your actual image wide or size, wide or height, and so between the actual one and the rendered one, you will get a warning. So if you're trying to use a big image for just an icon, for example, Angular will let you know, but it means that if there is only 900 pixels of difference, you won't get a warning. So still be careful about that. I was talking about the fill input. So this fill input will allow you to define the image as taking all the space available. So if you're setting fill, you don't need to put the height and the wide on the image. But you need to be careful, because you need to move this image with the fill input within a container using position relative, because the image itself will be absolute. If you don't do it, you will have some weird behavior in your page. Another one is about the input NgSrcset, which puts the srcset by default like that, will enable putting different values. So depending on your set images with the size, and the browser will resolve them based on the current context of your user. So you can just define them like that and let the browser define what the best value to use, or you can use also with that size, which is more recent API in the browsers, and which will allow to provide a more responsive behavior for your images. And so you define it like that with size, and it will use a different image based on some breakpoints that you define. So, for example, for the first one, if we use the third image, for the second one, the second image, and so on and so on. So you can really define the behavior that you want. We also have a placeholder inputs, because you might have some heavy image event if you try to optimize it, and you might want, rather than having a blank space in your page, to have some placeholder. So, for example, you can define something like that, having not a smaller image, but a low quality image, which will be used as a placeholder for image. And once it's fine, you can use it, and you have a beautiful way to be banned from Italian meetups. And so we have some options, some definition for placeholder. So about the blur, the default blur radius, there is the dimension. So there is a warning if the placeholder is too big, because you don't want a high quality image. And there are some warning about the data URL being used with a lot of options under the hood. Another option is about image loader. You might want to use your local images, but nowadays we have solutions like Cloudinary, which enable to host your image, and depending on query params in your request, to query different images with different size, different qualities. And Angular is providing some image loaders by default, like for Cloudinary. And the idea is that it's really easy to use for you, because it will define what is required for Cloudinary, for example, here, to define as a quality query params, and for Cloudflare, for example, quality is defined in another way. So you don't have to deal with that, but you could create a custom image loader if you need. There is also SRC concerns about images. So that's here this part of this code. So it's from the directive, and it's quite a common code if you are used to SSR. You're looking for the server platform, and it's a solution to test if your code is running in the browser or on server side. And it's used in multiple ways in the directive. So it tests, for example, about the priority count. So not to check it on server side. It's used to create the preloading link tag on the server side, because it's useful in this situation, and it avoids to assess about placeholder dimensions on server side, because you don't care about this placeholder at this point. And that's all for this small introduction about the code itself. What's under the hood. As you can see, it's a lot of inputs. It's some small util function being used to help define and to help provide you all these best practices. So it's really a great directive, so you can really work on and focus about images, and even if you're not an expert. And yeah, you can see a small snapshot of the project that Chris was talking about, if you want to track all changes in your application.
Okay, Jérôme, thank you very much for the presentation. That was really insightful. And now let's jump to the Q&A session. Please be sure to ask your questions in the chat. And let's see if there is anything already there for us. Okay, there is one, I believe. Can we load DICOM images with more resolutions?
I don't know about DICOM at all, I confess. I could try to see about it, but it might require anyway some. I don't know. Yeah. If there is already an API provided by DICOM to load different resolutions, it might be quite enough. And if not, you might need to use. I don't know if you can use some image loader as a middleware. So to call your image loader, which will call DICOM, and letting your image loader making all the logic to resize images.
Okay, right. Thank you. And I don't see any further questions, so maybe let me ask one more. Are there any scenarios when you would not really recommend to use this optimized image directive, or you would rather say, please go with this one every time you are dealing with images? There should be no issues, whatever you are working with.
And by talking with UI devs that we have in the company, the main concern was about having some custom strategy about the position of the element. I think that the most the pain point is about setting statically the height and the width. And even if you can use srcset and size for some different behavior, sometimes I think that we were all used to define either the height or the height, and the other one to 100%, and to make it easily responsive. But I'd say that optimization for performance is always a great thing, but you might just be in a quite simple situation where you could say that, okay, it's fine if I'm using a big image and though there is only one, but if you have some page with a lot of images, I think that it will be difficult not to care about performance, and it will. You could say you could do it in a custom way on your, but this directive is really about helping you to make good choice, to make good decisions, and to having some help about it tests distortion, for example, to make sure that the image is not distorted, and so it's really great for us.
Right, thank you for the answer. And we have another one. So do we not need to provide all the width and height attributes anymore when trying to use the directive?
It's only if you don't want, you can use fill not to set it. But the idea is still about using the smaller image, the smallest image that you could. So I'd keep fill for background images like that, stuff like that. But you would still have to put the height and the white. Putting the height and the white is one of the main concern for SCP, for your biggest image, because you want to save this place even if the image is not here. So the strategy is about saving the space. If it's a big image, and even with priority can take some time. You can use a placeholder, so it will be loaded way faster. And yeah, you need to save some space. Or I think that we all use of this website, or the website is loaded, you're trying to click on a button and suddenly there is an image or some link. Yeah, we are all used to this link. So yeah, you need for a lot of cases it might be quite annoying sometimes to find the right dimension, but you need to set it.
Right. Yeah, I believe we all know this pain. Right, it's like these shifts are just crazy. Okay, so we've reached the end of our Q&A session. Once again, Jérôme, thank you very much for the outstanding presentation and your valuable contributions. And hopefully, see you again soon.
Yeah, see you.